I've used the principles as best I know them to work in my teaching. As I look at this little guy, he's just out of the imagination. He's just fun. He's a light switch, actually. There was a wood piece that went with him, and the little light switch was here for a child's room. But I had to create texture here, and I had to figure out how to do texture. That's an artist's way of fooling the eye. The hair is just, I had to create texture there. I wanted it to be kind of rough. So I used a lot of stroke work to make that look like texture. The little bell, of course, had to be very shiny, and so I wanted very smooth painting there. This is a perfect ball. All I had to do was very easy. All I had to do was paint my ball first. Put my high reflection where my light hit the strongest. Then I just put these little openings in. So that was a very easy thing to paint. To make this side of the box turn as opposed to that side, you can see how I use contrast. This is very light and this is very dark, but yet it's the same color, the same hue. I created texture, had to create texture on the knob. I wanted to make it look like a wooden knob, so that was my problem, to create texture. Well, let's look at this. This happens to be a pattern for Babythings. And on this one, I see I've used a lot of negative space back here. I haven't just honed in on the design. But this space back here is important as what goes on here. And basically, my pattern line fits kind of into a triangle. There isn't much of a line. This is kind of triangle. This builds into a triangular shape. Each little piece in here had to be thought out as to form. I had to make a form, and I had to use light and dark, and I had to use warm and cool. Perspective. When you get into perspective, you need a little bit more detailed study on this. That's a hard thing to do. Each of these blocks had perspective, because as things move away from the eye, they get smaller, and that you can see on this block. The front of this block is closer to the eye, so it's larger. As it moves away from the eye, it gets smaller. So each area in here had to be taken into consideration as far as drawing. And that comes in with practice and with a little bit of study on perspective. The same way with her little feet, her little legs. One leg had to go down here and another leg had to go down here, but I had to make sure that even though I was drawing the legs, they had to connect into her body. And that's something you always have to remember, that just because a pattern line or a line stops something, you have to think about this total little guy that's sitting back here. So these legs wouldn't connect down here, one down here, maybe one up there. So always think about your total image. And that's true of anything that you paint. Let's look at this little hand over here. This has to connect up to his shoulder, as this has to connect up to his shoulder. You have to think about light source too as you're painting. It's always important to think, where is my light coming from? And it always has to be consistent. And it's easier to think of one light source as two light sources, because then you have, with two light sources, you have light areas here and maybe a light area here. You have a shadow here and a shadow here. So you can see there's a little bit of shadow here. I've only played with one light source, so I've created one shadow here. I've created a shadow here. There's a little bit of a shadow here. There's shadow here. It's just easier to play with one light source.
Maybe you better get the picture of Fidette back out.
Why?
That's her singing with you.
Oh, that's Fidette. That's Fidette.